Hello, this is Todd Luck, and this is a review of Take Me to Tarzana. And so basically, I am making this video because I stumbled on this movie while searching for Tarzan stuff on Amazon Prime, and I'm sure other people will too. And so I'm here to basically answer two questions for you. Is it Tarzan related? And if so, is it worth watching if you're a fan of Edgar Rice Burroughs or Tarzan? And so first of all, let's talk about what Tarzana is, for those who don't know. When Edgar Rice Burroughs created Tarzan about 100 years ago, he became very rich. And so he bought some land in California and established his Tarzana ranch. He sold off some of that land and it became a community that became known as Tarzana, and it's a suburb of Los Angeles, which to this day is still called Tarzana. Now, unlike what the movie says, Burroughs' last home was not in Tarzana. He actually, after World War II, moved to Encino, California, where he would spend his last days. I approached this movie with cautious optimism because sometimes these kind of referential sort of movies can actually be interesting or good. You know, you look at Fanboys, which was about, Star Wars fans going to see a Star Wars movie, or you look at something like Scream, which is about, kids who watch horror movies being subjected to the tropes from those movies by the villain, something like that. And so it starts as basically Office Space for millennials. You have your main characters, Miles and Jane, who work in an office that's really crappy. They find out their boss is secretly taking upskirts from the girls. And while they're investigating that with their stoner friend Jameson, they find out that the boss is actually data mining the private data of people and selling it to the Russians. And so there's kind of a shift in the movie about an hour or so in, where the boss comes after them and he's got hired thugs, and it captures Miles and Jane and takes them away, and it becomes sort of a comedic action adventure. And so the last half hour of the movie, they finally reveal that the CEO of the company lives in Tarzana, and that's where they've been taken. And so Jameson has to go there to save them. And we don't get to see any of Tarzana. We just get to see this one mansion, which is allegedly in Tarzana. And the CEO of the company swings in with a loincloth and is supposed to be this like super obsessive guy about Tarzan. But it feels completely arbitrary to the rest of the movie and the themes that they were developing. Having a guy in a loincloth giving a speech about internet privacy is just kind of weird. And the way that they did Tarzan, or his Tarzan obsession, is just very, very superficial. It just looks like they looked up Tarzan statues on eBay and bought about 5 collectible statues and figurines. They're the ones you can buy yourself. They're about this big. And then did a search for like African statues and just bought a few of those. And that's it. I mean, you've got like 5 reproductions of old movie posters that are throughout the mansion. And we're talking like, we see multiple rooms here. So that's like 5 throughout the entire mansion. And that's it. This guy, for a zillionaire who's Tarzan obsessed, just doesn't have a particularly interesting Tarzan collection. My understanding is the banks in Tarzana have a more extensive Tarzan display than this guy does. And there's also some Asian statues in parts of the mansion, but those are larger and outside, and I'm assuming that came with the mansion, but it sort of doesn't go with his Tarzan theme and just seems really weird. It just doesn't feel like there was a lot of research put into that aspect of the movie. It just feels like a very superficial thing they just slapped on there to try to get people's attention, and not something that really tied into the movie or that they put a lot of heart or thought into. However, I will say we saw more live animals than we did in the last Tarzan movie. There is a couple seconds of a lion, even though we can tell it's just footage of a lion in a cage. And then there is a monkey that does get to interact with the actors. So if you're going into it hoping to get something Tarzan out of it, don't bother. As far as the movie itself goes, I think there's a lot of good talent in here. There's a lot of good actors. The script at times is quite good, as far as its comedic stuff. But the thing about it was, a lot of times, I intellectually knew it was funny. I got all the humor, in the first, hour and 15 minutes of the movie, but I usually didn't laugh at it. The delivery just wasn't, something that made me laugh. And, it's kind of hard to put my finger on exactly why that is, but it's just a project that just has a lot of talent and has a lot of potential to it, but just didn't quite come together in a way that worked for me. Jameson is probably the most over-the-top and out-there character, their stoner friend, but he actually got the parts that I actually did laugh at. There's a scene where he's trying to impersonate CEO of a company, and he says, "I founded the company at 12 years old and worked my way to the top." And then there's another scene where he's at an arcade and he's got the red tickets that come out of the arcade machines, and he's doing this number with them like they're dollar bills. I mean, there's some inspired stuff in there like that. Unfortunately, most of it just didn't make me laugh. And it is definitely trying to go for the same vein as Office Space and Clerks, and and is trying to explore some things about what it's like in the workplace and internet privacy, all of which I think are really good themes for a movie that, again, that just didn't click with me in this particular one. However, I did, again, appreciate, what they were trying to do, except when we got to that last half hour at the mansion, when I feel like the wheels just come off and I just don't understand what they were going for at all. The humor just becomes really bizarre. The evil CEO has this servant who's dressed like he's on a jungle safari, but he has this super effeminate, like over the top, like gay kind of mannerisms that apparently he forces the dude to do, and basically he rapes the dude too, at least that's the implication in the dialogue. And it's just like, is this funny? I mean, am I being too sensitive to say this might be a little bit offensive? And the last half hour is mostly the CEO like being high on these designer drugs, and I just didn't get why they wanted to play that up for humor, especially considering the opioid crisis and how many people are getting addicted and dying from stuff like that. It was just really weird humor. I mean, there's gags about him storing stuff up his butthole, and I didn't get it. And so there was a lot of potential here, but to me it just didn't come together. And when you're trying to take a swipe at Tarzan, it pays to do your research, and it pays to have respect for the material, because you can tell that. You can tell when Kevin Smith makes pop culture references that he knows the territory and he likes it, and that's why his humor about those things works. But I will say that the movie is in keeping with a Hollywood tradition of swiping Tarzan to try to get attention for various projects. It's actually so prevalent to do Tarzan ripoffs that I actually, while researching this movie, found that there was a movie called Tarzana the Wild Girl that was made, and it's basically Tarzan as a woman who wears nothing but a thong. I am not even kidding you. So this movie has a lot of company. I wouldn't call it good company, but it's certainly not alone in its attempt to try to cash in on the notoriety of Tarzan. And so that's all my thoughts about this weird little movie that sort of swipes Tarzan. I do have a lot of other reviews of other Tarzan movies and comics and things like that, as well as other Edgar Rice Burroughs comics as well. So like and subscribe for more videos, and until next time, see ya.